So Shiv, I came across this quote which goes like, the charisma of narcissism, the cunning of Machiavellianism, and the cold detachment of psychopathy are ingredients of a toxic personality. So I guess like the theme of this episode would be about those topics, about toxic personalities and like looking at it from many different angles. So there's like a book called like, oh well, something from Philip Zimbardo called the Lucifer Effect, and we'll sort of like explore this more in depth of what that is and what that looks like. I guess probably it's probably inspired, like the show called Lucifer is probably inspired by some aspects of this. So the first section, I guess, will cover, because the quote goes like, the charisma of narcissism is what about narcissism, right? Like people throw this term around a lot, and just for some context, the term of narcissism, it comes from like this Greek myth of Narcissus, who, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Narcissus or Narcissus, who's someone who fell in love with his own reflection. He's looking at a river or something, sees his own reflection, he just falls in love with it and ends up, I think it was like something like ends up drowning because just falls into the river.
Mm.
I think it's something like that. But he's just someone who fell in love with his own reflection. And that's where that idea comes from of narcissism. So in the modern day, the way that you can translate that is basically someone who inflates their self importance and has a need for constant validation, admiration, and has a deep sense of lack of empathy of other people. So the whole focus is just themselves.
Mm. So they're very selfish. Like it's a very selfish
Yeah,
mindset.
very selfish. Yeah, in fact, to the point
No,
that
selfless.
no, I wouldn't really say selfless.
Well, no, there's no selflessness, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like
correct.
It's about all about themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think in this context, it could really mean like in destructive means as well sometimes.
Yep.
But yeah, like the characteristics that they highlight is like grandiosity, which is like a belief in their own uniqueness and superiority. Then need for admiration. So like the idea of constant validation. So people go on social media, post about themselves, say everything about themselves, use like cars or whatever to validate their status and so on and so forth. Then there's like the exploitation of others. And I feel like this is the part where it's like very toxic because it's more so using other people to their advantage, but in a negative and destructive way.
I like how you said that at the end, negative and destructive way. Do you think there's a positive way to use people for self-advancement?
I think, like, to be really brutally honest, right? Say, for example, in the context of business, you have to be selfish. Like, there's no other positive way to really put it because there's going to be people out there who's going to try and take advantage of your kindness. And it's not even just business. This goes for anything in general. Like, even when you're dealing with real estate agents, lawyers, professionals in the industry, they're going to try and extract as much money and as much time from you. And sometimes you have to be a little bit selfish to protect yourself. And see, in that case, it's not really a negative thing, but it's when you're exploiting other people. Say you're on their end where they're trying to, you got a case you're dealing with law and you have lawyers and you want to get this resolved as soon as possible, right? Whereas in the case of lawyers, they're trying to extend the time so they can get paid more. And they're very expensive per hour, per minute, per word that they type on an email, you get charged. So it's like that in that context, they're using other people to their advantage to get more out of them. And I guess in that context of you being selfish, of getting things done quickly and protecting yourself is important, which is like not a negative one.
Why do you think it's interesting? Because I think the way you've described it is you've got to be a narcissist with narcissists.
That's
right?
a pretty interesting way you put it.
Like you've got to sort of be a bit narcissistic with other narcissistic people. And it doesn't, the thing is though with that is you'll have two different personalities, like two, when you, I think I've seen two narcissists clash and the outcome isn't great. Like it becomes sort of a fireball effect. Like it just the impact compounds. That's why if you have relationships with two very toxic narcissistic people, you see how that relationship will go down. Bit of a spectacle. I don't mean that in a bad way, but yeah, it's like and I think this is where we can talk about it later about like Machiavellianism, because that's something you mentioned. But it's about, you know, recognizing those patterns of, am I like exploitation, or is this person a narcissist, and sort of using that against them, like fueling their own fire. So, you know, a classic example, if you know lawyers are going to screw you over, or real estate agents are going to screw you over, there's a level of narcissism that you could possess to combat that. And I find that quite interesting, because it kind of tells you that humans are actually capable, as much as we would say that humans are not, like, the most perfect human being might not be selfish, be very empathetic, be very opposite of a narcissist. Let's put it that way, right? They're completely different, and they're so very selfless. They could have the ability to be narcissistic if needed, to manipulate a situation that works in their favor. And I think everyone is capable of that little evil in them, right? So I think everyone has that. Everyone can be a bit selfish, is what I'm trying to get to.
I think so too. Like, I think there's this quote that I like. I think I sort of randomly saw it on a YouTube comment. And some random YouTuber. It was like a YouTube video I was watching, and it was like a very interesting, like, they were analyzing this character from some anime.
Right.
And it's just very interesting. And I came across this comment, I really liked it, which was like, it's okay to be selfish for selfless reasons.
Yes.
And when I think about Naval, he always says like, the greatest questions in life is answered through paradoxes. And that itself is like almost like a paradox. Like, how can you be selfish as selfless? But it's like, an example I can really give is like, you're looking after your own health. So you're going to the gym. Sometimes you might say no to some people's things. Like, oh, you want to go out and eat. Maybe sometimes, obviously, you reserve some days where you do go out and eat and enjoy it. But most of the time, you're probably just trying to keep your health in check. And you might say no to that, and you might eat something else. Or you might say no to other people's activities because you're trying to train. And you don't want to lose that routine. So you don't want to go overnight and mess up your morning, or whatever your routine is to exercise. But then the selfless reason behind that is because your health is good. You're able to look after other people. You're able to do what you're doing for your job, or you're able to function and run such that you're not going to be a physical burden for someone else. So it's like, in a way, yeah, probably it's selfish for me to say no to something sometimes, but the other reason behind that, or the second order consequence of that, is me being selfless to be able to provide and secure for other people.
Yeah. I like how you said, I brought that up, because then the next level of narcissism to that is, if you're someone that puts others down for not looking after their health, for example, or, I mean, again, there's so many different contexts for things like this. It's like, how do you do it? You know, it's interesting, because I feel like a lot of people will just throw labels around. Oh, you're a narcissist. Oh, you're a narcissist. Oh, he's such a narcissist. But it's like, there's a comedian named Rena Veca, I think.
Right.
Have you seen him?
No, I haven't.
I can't tell if he's Indian or Latino. He's actually hilarious. And he was in the crowd of girl. I think he was doing crowd work, and he said something. He's like, "Such a narcissist." That's what girls. That's what girls like. Just throw labels around. Such a narcissist. And it's like, it makes sense. Like, we're so quick to throw these labels around that. Maybe the criticism from people is being constructive. It's like, there's a big difference between going, "Hey man, I've got bigger muscles than you. You look like shit," then going, "Hey man, like, you could do better with your health, and the way to do it is, you could clean up your diet a little bit, you could exercise a little bit, whatever." There's a big difference in how you present that to someone. And one would be labeled as constructive feedback, or getting someone to improve. The other would be labeled as narcissism. You know, the sense of belief that they're superior to you because they've got bigger muscles, or they're, you know, the biggest one I find with narcissists is, I don't know how, and again, this depends on what extent it goes to. I think you talked about it earlier, but like the need for admiration. Like, if you think about humans in general, like, I think we all have a sense of wanting to be validated. True or true? True or true? So I think, personally, like, it's good. I think it's definitely a trait, because it's like, do you do everything to feel validated, or do you do things for others because you're selfless and you want to actually genuinely help people. Do you agree?
Oh, like I completely agree.
Yeah.
Like I think that comes from like being a child. Like when you're a kid, you always want to feel validated, like from your parents, especially. Like you do certain things, you know, be like, oh mom, look at what I got. I got like some A or something. They're like, oh yeah, we don't really care. They're like, yeah, little claps, that's it. Or like I did this, like oh, I made this. Like as a kid, you always want to feel like you're validated all the time, and I think that's where it sometimes does stem from as well.
Mm.
And like even still, even at work, even at like other places, like even your partner, in some ways, you do want to feel like, and I think part of it is like a sense of belonging, maybe. Like you want to feel like you're belonging to that person and you're providing value to them that is being received, and you're also being valued as well and recognized for that. I think that's where that idea of validation does come from. And because at the end of the day, all of us humans want to have a sense of belonging. Like we
Mm.
want to belong to a group. We want to. That's why this community. That's why during the during the COVID and lockdown period, there were so many online communities created, and there are still so many communities like Discord. Everything is like sort of Telegram groups. They've all been expanding a lot. Even Facebook groups. Like there's just a huge sense of community and being able to belong.
Mm.
This is just how we're wired as well. So
It's interesting because I think in those communities now, though, would you agree with this? Do you think social media has become more toxic
oh yeah,
before
definitely.
post-COVID?
Definitely way more toxic compared to 10 years ago.
Like post-COVID, though?
I would say so as well.
Even like after COVID, it's increased,
Much more.
right? What do you think? What do you think is the reason for that?
I think people are just being frustrated during that period of lockdown
Yeah,
and just being in their own home. Like even like the consumption of alcohol was increasing at the time or something as well. So people are
drugs,
isolated.
porn,
Exactly. People are frustrated, isolated,
superficial dopamine hit, sort of thing. Yes,
and then also like being told what to do. Like they don't have the sense of freedom.
being told what to do by whom?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
So,
I definitely agree. I think some of these, like, I don't want to label people narcissists straight away, but some of the things that you see on Facebook groups, for like comments, or you see things on Instagram, or you see things, and it's just like, why do you have the need to say that? And it's interesting because, like, I think when you scroll through these things, people fall on two sides of a controversial topic. And it gets quite interesting, right? Because let's say you say immigration is at an all-time high in Australia and needs to be curbed. You'll have two sides of the people on that. You'll have people that are very, I'm not going to say anti-immigration in the sense that they probably want to curb immigration for their own reasons, for whatever reasons, right? Like they say, oh, housing pricing, housing demand, because immigrants come in and take houses. Well, why don't you just increase the supply? Well, the government can't increase supply because there's all these regulations and stuff they have to go through, for example, right? Then on the other side, you have people that are pro-immigration and they understand maybe the impacts of, you know, what immigration brings: skilled labor, more tax revenue, etc., right? Different cultures being brought in. Now, I'm not saying either or is good or bad, but I think it's gotten to a point now where it's so divisive. And I feel like narcissists or people that feel like they just want to make themselves feel heard might wrongly be labeled as a narcissist. But the only way they can make themselves heard is through social media. And so they go on this spouting, not rage, but a sense of importance. You know, they don't feel important in their own lives, in their personal lives or in person, right? So to feel important, they go, right, I could be a leader of opinion A and make it very known because I feel great about it, because I'm being validated by thing. Or it could be, I could be the leader of topic B, opinion B, and feel validated on that end. And it's interesting because it's like, well, are those people narcissists? I don't know. You need a psychiatrist or a psychologist to determine that. But I think like the toxicity of social media, I would say, has been because you've seen the rise of narcissists. And that's an opinion, that's not a fact. I could be proven wrong easily on that, but that's what I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree as well. I think like after I think during COVID as well, people lacked some sort of external purpose, like as in doing something other than themselves, like because you're locked in a room. So to make themselves feel like they need to be validated, and there's also a lack of belonging, like physical contact and things like that. And I feel like because of the lack of, well, most people probably don't have that. So like, so the lack of belonging and the lack of, I would say, like an external purpose, because you could argue the people that talk trash online, their purpose is just talking trash, but that's just putting focus on themselves so that they can feel validated. It's like the lack of feeling it. I really like how you said they don't feel any sense of importance, and they're not recognized as an important person or something by other people from their real life. So that's why on social media they post those things to get a sense of purpose or importance.
Mm.
It's just like the lack of external purpose, the lack of, I would say, being valued by someone, and the lack of belonging is what creates these groups of communities that are very toxic.
Yeah. I it's a it'll be an interesting sort of case study to see how much things have changed from pre-COVID to post-COVID. Because yeah, like you said, all the communities, people coming together, and I think it's also sort of a. I mean, if we look at why narcissistic tendencies are like prevalent in humans, like evolution plays a big part in everything we do. The way our minds work, the way psychology is determined, the way we behave, the way we react, the way we perceive things, the way we're attracted to things, the way we feel about things. Evolution plays a part to that, you know. So walking in at night through dark woods, again, it's survival, adrenaline, like all these your natural responses come into play. But if you look at, I think of, you know, why were narcissists? How does evolution relate to narcissists? Well, I think sort of if we look at it like in a community, you have a leader, right? You'd have that one person that leads back in the day. If that one person wasn't, I guess, um, if they weren't placing the importance of survival in this sense that, like they're promoting their own interests and being selfish about it, their leadership is at risk at that point. They could easily be killed and taken off by another leader, right? Like in tribes and groups of communities. So it's like, well, that's why it's, you know, one of the reasons why we probably see when people get in communities or groups is you have that one person that will try to consolidate the lead. And I don't mean this in like if you're in a friend group and your friend makes decisions like, oh, we should go eat here, we should do that. That's not narcissistic. That's just like someone just making decisions based on what they want. But they obviously, if they don't even ask you what you want, then that's stupid, right? But if they ask you what you want and you say, oh, whatever, bro, then let them make the decision, which is different, right? But I think in communities, it's sort of that herd mentality. And as soon as you bring people in groups, that's when you start seeing true personalities of people come out. Because in a group, in a team, you can either have people that are selfless and wanting to work as a team, or you can have one person that's all about themselves that will ruin the entire dynamic of that team. And that sort of comes from, well, if I don't place my self-importance, I'm not going to survive. So it's like a balancing act.
It's very interesting that you say it like that as well. I think like coming towards like a leader, I feel like they sort of need to be a bit like they have to actually, I'll be honest, they have to be a bit selfish. They have to be narcissistic because, for example, if you're like a CEO of a company, like you're gonna have to say no to some deals because some people just don't have your best interest, and you will have to probably fire some people because they're not like doing the adequate work or they're not meeting company standards and things that they've signed up for and that they've agreed that they can deliver. And you have to do that because there's probably someone else out there who'll deliver and keep the company rolling, because they're, in a way, your decisions will impact downstream of like all the other individuals that are involved in the company. And at the same time, your decisions will dictate whether some families will be fed or not. Because you're, if you're at the top of the business and you're making these like decisions that can obviously throw off the trajectory of business, then that impacts everyone else. So, and that's, as I said, like families being fed or not. So that's why you sort of have to, and again, that's like the selfish for selfless reasons. You have to be selfish because a lot of people that are under your company depend on you.
Yep.
And whether people like it or not, it's just, you just have to be a bit cold.
And I think, you're right. And I think you can take traits of narcissism, but you can't be a full blown narcissist either. And that's where it gets interesting, because I think it goes back to the first point. It's everyone has the ability to be a little narcissistic, and you have to be a little narcissistic at times. Not a full blown narcissist where your whole life is dependent on that. It's very different than having a bit of characteristics to defend yourself, to get the highest status if needed, to get the resources. It's sort of a superficial self-esteem boost. But again, your confidence will take you further than being low on self-esteem. That confidence will drive you to do better things. And if those better things are at the expense of others, that's when it's like, okay, to what extent? Am I exploiting people, or am I not exploiting them? I guess it's the best way to put it. But yeah, it's interesting how like narcissism, it's sort of an interesting question. Like, why does it exist in humans? Like, the Greek myth looks in the mirror and just admires himself and places that self-importance, superiority complex on self. It's like, it's derived from so many different places, right? Like, let's look at India, for example, the caste system. That's a classic example of social hierarchy, placing people in certain groups and exploiting them for whatever reason, having no empathy towards people in the lower caste, right? But also, you've got people at the higher up that are very selfish, probably. They don't see it that way, though, right? They're very selfish. They like exploiting the lower caste because in their eyes, they're beneath. They're the superior complex. They're more self-important. They get validated because they're the higher thing. They're the highest caste. So it's like they don't even see that they have narcissistic traits. They think of it as normal because this is what social and cultural beliefs are, And so, I mean, it's a classic example. Like, starts at one point. You have kids, right? So you're breeding. You're bringing in people. Those kids are impacted by environmental factors in those areas. You've got the home life. How do you treat your kids? Oh, that caste, they're the lowest, so people don't go near them. You're superior. So it becomes a psychological thing then, because then it's inbred, it's built into their brains, and it sort of wires how they see things. Then it goes into, it's like a full-blown circle at that point. And why do we think the caste system was created? I don't know why it was created. Like, it would be interesting to know why, but it could be the basis of survival. If we have a caste system, I'm not saying this is right. I could get this completely wrong. I think there are religious reasons to it. So full disclaimer, I'm not saying this is fact. If I was to speculate, why do we have a caste system? Well, you need a social hierarchy system for survival, right? Like, I think it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's not very hierarchical in terms of social, but there are certain things that we as humans need to survive. So why don't we create a caste system that has a social hierarchy which sets people at different levels to contribute to society at that point in time, and they all play their different roles in bringing society together so we all survive. The problem with that is that doesn't apply now. but it's just gone on for so long that it's sort of built into the DNA of people.
Yeah, interesting way you put it. Yeah, but regardless, like there is always like a hierarchy, even in companies where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
work at.
correct.
It's not to that extent,
No,
but
no,
it's like for because like it's possible for anyone to eventually get there, but it would just take the expenditure of time
yes.
and networking to be able to get there. But before it was like more based off like what families you're married into, like it's more royal
Yeah.
hierarchies.
So I think what I was trying to draw the picture was like the social and cultural norms and that how that impacts narcissism, and that sort of branches into different areas. Like that can go into it gets into psychological, caste system, evolution sort of perspective. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong. Um, but yeah, it all comes together at some point, and then you've got it's like, why are people narcissists, right? It's like we're very quick to throw these words around, but it's like, okay, well, but why do they lack empathy? But why do they need to be admired? Why do they need to be, um, why are they so cunning? Why do they think of themselves as the most important person in the room? Like, there's always like that sort of false foundation. It's like, we know it's the characteristic, but why do they possess these characteristics? And 9 out of 10 times there's a reason for that. It's either survival, or it's either they're a piece of shit, or they're insecure. They have no sense of importance in other aspects. So the only way they get importance is either their workplace, their relationship, their friendships, or society.
Yeah, that's a good way of I would say outlining like the origins of how a person becomes very narcissistic. Yeah, I think like the biggest thing that I did get from this as well, like when you bring it up, like everyone inevitably is to some extent narcissistic, even if you do like that. I think there's like a test where you can see like your narcissistic Machiavellian. It's the I don't know if it's the I forgot what it's called actually, to be honest. But there's a test like that which you can do online, and everyone will have inevitably, even if you're the kindest, nicest person on the planet, like you will have some form of narcissism because it is survival. But I think the main thing is not becoming a monster,
Mm.
like to the point where you're like cold, manipulative, like well, in this case, you're destructive, where you're I would say intentionally exploiting that person. And I think the best way I can give like an analogy is like being a parasite. Like a parasite is basically in terms of relationship, like there's I think it's called parasitism because there's like mutualism and there's like parasitism. And parasitism is like the idea of like a basically an organism or an individual in this case just basically extracting everything from another person and not giving anything, like completely extracting them to the point that they are just drained.
Mm.
And like just like a parasite, what they do is just they come into a host, they extract everything, then they take it and just run.
Yeah.
Basically, that's where I would say is like very a negative, I would say, way of being very like narcissistic. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Parasite?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. Basically, exactly that,
Yeah.
which was a very interesting movie to us.
It brings
Yes,
that idea
yeah.
of that social and cultural side, because you've got two sides of the family. You've got a family that's very wealthy, and you've got a family that's quite poor. And both have different needs of survival, different means of survival.
And you could argue as well, both are somewhat narcissistic,
Of course.
like
Yeah,
in their own different ways.
they are. But yeah, and I think that's what the movie highlighted really well was that aspect, was there's both sides to narcissism, and you know, the need to survive, you can't do it via exploiting others on both sides. You know, you're being destructive. Like, I think that's a perfect way to put it, is ask yourself, am I being destructive? Problem is, a lot of people don't ask themselves that, because in their minds it's like, I'm right, you're wrong.
That's why like space is very important to create sometimes. Like as in giving yourself the space to be able to like reflect and think. Like but then most people don't.
People don't.
And I feel like the destructive side of narcissism is like just getting attention and feed like as much as possible. Like the very easiest ones, like social media, where they do posts like break up like someone, celebrities, whatever. They do these weird indirect posts of their ex that they've just broken up with on social media for everyone to see so that they can respond.
Yeah.
And then they keep making these posts and just to get attention, and they make all these weird like accusations which they don't even realize can become a very big serious thing because it's basically a defamation if you're making up stories.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like basically the only way you can combat that is just not even responding, because the death of a narcissistic person is silence. I'm being serious. Like this is from actual personal experience. Like narcissistic people that I've dealt with that are destructive, that are really intentionally trying to harm and damage you,
Yep.
just not responding was the best thing. Because what it leads to is self-destruction. Like being cold instead of being aggressive and like trying to respond is the best response to a narcissistic person, because they have so much energy to destroy your life that they just end up destroying themselves. Yeah.
Perfectly said. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever? Yeah.
Because
Narcissistic people are very interesting to deal with. I'll tell you that.
yeah, like I mean, the destructive narcissistic person who are intentionally out there to harm someone.
Very interesting people to deal with.
But that's the best way to deal with them, to be honest. Yeah.
I think once you read how to deal with narcissists, it's like you play the game so well. And I think everyone should have that skill to identify a narcissist and know how to play them. As sinister as it sounds, everyone should have that ability. Is, all right, I'm going to be very careful how I play this game with this person. But in the process, you could become narcissistic too. Like, you know, if a girl's narcissistic, just love bomb her, give her all the validation, take it away, walk away, come back, give her more validation, apologize, make her feel important, walk away, go back. No, I'm joking. Don't do that.
Continuing on, like I wanted to sort of go on the idea of narcissism in terms of relationships and work, because I feel like it's quite important to sort of understand that. I think like in personal relationships, narcissists tend to be like very possessive or controlling, and they, as I said, demand excessive attention and manipulating partners as well.
Yeah. But why do you think that is? Why do you think they do it?
Because maybe it's just, it could, as we said before, it's a lot of influences could play into this. One of them could be it's really like where their beliefs and values derive from and what it really is. Because some things like I would say some people think is possessive might be out of just being protective. Sometimes it could be maybe to them overprotective, but for mostly men, right? It's not exactly controlling. It's actually just coming out of care. It's just like the intent of it as well. But to them, it might seem like, no, they're trying to like minimize my freedom or something. Like, for example, a girl going out to like a club, like let's say Las Vegas, like to those areas, and she's wearing all these revealing clothes. Like as a guy, as a partner, you'd probably just be like, maybe it'd be a bit like you should wear something a bit more appropriate, because obviously it's a place where, because you know how other guys are, that they might obviously like hit on them, and you're like in a relationship now, you're not like a single girl, so just think of it, just think like you're in a relationship, like things like that. And but the thing is, they're coming out from the perspective of being protective, caring. But to a girl, it might be like, they're very controlling. Yeah,
I see both sides to that personally. I think there's an element of trust that's important, and I think there's also the fact that you can't personally, you can't think about what other guys are going to say or do. Like that's something that you just can't control. Like you've got to not accept that, but understand that, you know, that's just how men are wired. Like it sucks because if you're a man yourself, you understand that. But I see both sides to it. Like, yeah, you could. There's one side of, you know, how much do I need to speak to her? Then there's how much trust is in a relationship, and there's what can I do that I can control. Essentially, in that situation, you can't do anything that you can control. I think if someone does something that night, whatever, then that just reveals their true character in that point in time as well.
That also is like you can almost prevent that if you go with someone who has values, like
Yeah.
as in aligns with your values. If you
Correct.
don't want to go, if you're a guy who is like obviously a bit less like, you know, probably like not as conservative or
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
maybe you're like okay with that.
yeah.
Maybe that girl will work
exactly.
really well with you.
Yeah,
But if you're a guy who's a bit more like conservative, like more religious or something, and
yeah,
you worry about those things, then if you go for a girl who has those values, who's like probably, I don't know, religious, practicing, a bit more conservative, a bit more
Yeah.
modest, then you won't have those problems to deal with. And that's how
Exactly.
you can like almost prevent yourself going through that process
exactly.
just
And
by,
prevent yourself from becoming a narcissist in the process as well, of wanting to control things that are out of your control. You know,
that's well said. And I think that's how you can come across less narcissistic type of behaviors or tendencies in a relationship. Just having aligned values and beliefs that are, doesn't have to be the exact same, but like aligned, I would say more aligned values. Because if they are aligned, then you'll have less controlling because they understand where you're coming from and you're both on the same page. So there's many things you don't have to explain.
exactly. But yeah, that's why values are important.
Yeah. So like that's how
I
you,
do agree. Like there's always both sides to it, but yeah, I agree. You can't be a conservative guy that's dating a party girl, for example. Like that's just not gonna work. And you need to recognize that from the start. And you know, if someone is like that and they don't respect your boundaries, then take the loss. Like take the L. Like
yeah, someone has to make the bigger compromise there, or otherwise it's just not gonna work. Otherwise,
exactly.
someone else is gonna always be thinking like someone like whoever the girl, guy, whatever is partying. The other person is gonna be overthinking and stressed out, like in that process. If you're living like that,
Yeah, I think the most narcissists I've seen is social media. Can't stand that cesspool of people just trying to like. No, I'm kidding. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think yeah, social media is an interesting one. I just feel like that's the place where you see the best and the worst of people.
yeah, definitely. And like I'm just gonna quickly touch on this as well. I would say like in relationships, one that's not good, obviously, is like love bombing, where you just some guy, for example. This now, as I said, for girls. Now I'm going to talk for a guy, right? Some guys they give a lot of like attention. They give like flowers, everything. They make on a
A lot
girl
of attention,
a lot of attention. They give them everything. They give them the world,
compliments,
like
validation,
validation,
hang out.
yeah, literally dates, like high fancy dates.
Nothing bad. No red signs. Like
Yeah,
perfect guy.
says like I love you all every single day, and then they do all this stuff and then they disappear.
Yeah.
And then they keep doing it again, and then that's how like the girl becomes like manipulated in such in a way where it's like now since the guys love bomb this girl by just giving attention and withdrawing away and then doing this continuously, like the guy actually might not even care about the girl. They're just doing it for their own sexual pleasure.
Oh, their own
Perhaps.
pleasure in general.
Yeah,
Yes.
in pleasure in general, and then they do it for another girl. So it's like that's where it can be obviously narcissistic and you say like destructive.
But does it hook the girl?
Yeah, it definitely does.
It does, right? So is that appropriate then to manipulate the situation to work for you?
Well, like, see,
No,
the intent with that isn't pure.
It's
Because
destructive.
yeah, because you're just using the girl for your sexual or like whatever your pleasure. You're not actually in a genuine relationship to provide value, and most people probably aren't even loyal in that scenario.
And you're not being trust. You're not building trust.
Yeah, you're not.
You're being it with superficial trust. Yeah.
So I would say in that situation, it's not. But like obviously,
Yeah.
sorry,
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say like obviously like yeah, being romantic and stuff is cool, and then there's moments where you have absence because you're busy doing something.
Yes.
And then that also like sometimes you need a bit of, I'd say not space in that way, but it's like absence because then you value each other. Because if you're always 24/7 doing everything all the time, at some point you get sick of. Okay, I don't know any nice way to put it. Maybe you don't get sick of each other. It's like you almost
You get
devalue.
married, bro. What's going on? You might get married to a woman. He's like, you get sick of it.
It's like you devalue each other, basically. Like you don't value each other's presence as much. Like don't lose track of your own purpose and your goals as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Because then you fall out of it.
That's a better way to phrase it.
Yeah.
I perfectly agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Good
That's what happens a lot of times. And people lose their own sense of self.
Yeah.
In the process, where the identities become one, and it's like you sort of got to recognize that you're your own person as well, with your own needs. Obviously, not needs of sexual needs with other people, but just own needs in general. Like, you know, you need your time, you need your space, you need to be able to do your own things your way. And so where does that lead to, you know? I mean there's Facebook profiles of joint names. You know, it's like something like it'd be like John and Joanna Smith. Couples that have their like they have one Facebook profile for two people. Have you seen that?
No.
And usually the running joke is like one of the partners would have cheated or to lead to that, because some people just can't have separate things. You have joint bank accounts, that's fine, but joint Facebook profiles, you've never seen it.
No.
You're telling me you've never seen like a Angela and David?
Maybe you might have.
You might have, yeah.
But see, like I saw some YouTube accounts. That's like YouTube accounts.
Oh no, this is Facebook. Sorry.
Yeah, I haven't seen Facebook.
Facebook
profiles,
accounts.
so
Purely Facebook,
yeah.
or Instagram even. Yeah, I've never understood the idea of people flaunting their relationships on social media.
I think that's one of the quickest ways to destroy a relationship. Like where you have it on social media and it's both together and you're sharing everything on social media, because there's gonna be bad people that are gonna make up rumors.
Yeah, you might have like people that love the idea of breaking people up. Like there are women that have a fetish for married men. They will specifically sleep with married men because they get a higher kick out of it. It's like, oh, he chose me. He has a wife, but he also chose me. That's a the classic narcissistic trait. Like it's like your self-importance. You feel validated. You're chosen by someone that's married, supposedly has kids, right? You should be able to spot that, but men don't. Men think with their penises, not their heads, right? Like, let's be honest. But again, like, I'm not saying all men, but same thing with women, right? Like, women might not feel validated, then next minute they feel validated by another guy. It's like, oh, he cares about my feelings, you know? So it's like, it's interesting. Like you could easily have a joint Instagram profile and a woman might hit up that account and go, hey, I'm interested in seeing you, either the married guy or some shit. I don't know. Like, I don't know how they DM these or master their riz here, but that could just easily, if you're insecure, like if you're that insecure where you need joint Instagram profiles, you still haven't eliminated the threat. Like, this is where it's the idea of how much control do you need? And it's like, if you need full control, then you have lost control of yourself. So,
yeah. Good way to put it.
But no, seriously, there are women out there that women have this tendency of it's so toxic, dude. And it's hilarious when you think about it as well, and you understand where it comes from. It's like they have their own issues. It's a classic example of daddy issues, not having a strong father figure growing up. So they want validation from men. They want validation from married men. How do they get that validation? Well, you take the man away from the woman that he's supposedly married, like he's married to. That's a sense of winning for them. For a woman, it's, you know, not being validated in a relationship, which happens. You know, some women, like maybe the husbands work a lot more, don't pay enough attention to their families and stuff, you know, and you see both sides, right? Like probably you shouldn't work as much. You should focus on family, but on the other hand, how do you survive? Both sides. In comes a man, gives a little validation, shows a little bit of care, and straight away, like women are hooked on that. The woman, not women, the woman is hooked onto that, like some sort of drug, you know? So
Yeah, I think the biggest thing as well for a woman is like the absence of presence. Like when you're not
yes,
there, like, and it's not even just being present. Like you have to actually be mindful because you can be present and you can be thinking about 10,000 other things, but you're not spending that time like mindfully. So you're not actually there.
it
So things like that is
it
really important.
surprises me how many times I've gone out and I've seen people sit across each other and they're on their phones. It's like
Why even go out?
like there's
Yeah.
something clearly like something is clearly a problem there. That if you can't sit without your phone for an hour or 2 hours, I mean, I'm pretty addicted to YouTube and stuff, so I'm not gonna addict. But there's a difference, right? Like with you and your friends and stuff, it's kind of a pet peeve. It's like, are you really wanting to hang out, or are you just gonna scroll on your phone? You're just gonna scroll on your phone, stay home. Like, big difference. You know, people will be like, oh, let's hang out, let's hang out. You hang out and on their phone. It's like,
What's the point then?
well, I could have just laid in bed or could have done something more productive with my time. So
Yeah, so that's basically narcissism on relationships.
there's a lot more there.
Yeah.
A lot more. There's cheaters, there's people that abuse, there's people that we just spoke about cheating.
I think another one's emotionally blackmailing. That's a very narcissistic trait. Because I would say with abuse and all those stuff, that can be borderline like psychopathic.
Yeah.
Or and then the other one which you said was cheating. Yeah, that could be narcissistic as well.
That is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, narcissism or Machiavellian, or who knows. But like, I think the emotional blackmailing one is just like, that's like destructive narcissism for sure.
What's an I'm going to ask a really stupid question.
Yeah.
What's an example of emotional blackmail?
I would say one that's really bad, which I would not like. If I heard this in a relationship, I would just be like, once it's said, like that's it. Like, well, I'll give him one warning. If I hear it again, I'm out, because it's just it's the idea of like, say you have an argument and then they're like, I'm gonna leave.
Ooh.
And then like you have to agree on the spot.
Right.
And I'm just like, and then like they say it verbally, I'm gonna leave. Like they don't talk it out. They don't listen to you. They don't understand anything. They just say, I'm gonna leave. And then
like
you have
as a first response,
as an initial response.
Yeah.
Because he said, I'm gonna leave. I'm done with the relationship. Things like that. Basically, like, or I'm done. I'm gonna leave. And you just had an argument. Like you didn't even hear each other out or anything. So it's like, that's where it's like, yeah, that's, I would say, really, it's a really bad trait, because without listening to each other or trying to understand, it's different if it's like they tried listening and they tried explaining, and even though they've tried so many times, it's still not being like communicated. It's like, okay, fair enough. But when they say it straight off like that, and then they sort of making you like forcing you to beg or something, right? Then that point, that's like, I'd say, destructive narcissism, because that is sort of like emotionally blackmailing. Or I'm gonna hurt myself, or I'm gonna do this to myself, and then you're like in a position to like agree or submit, but it's not even real, because you're only submitting to it because you don't want them to feel pain or hurt.
But in the process, you've given the manipulator a lot of power.
You have, yeah, on that.
Because that's like an example. So I've just Googled it out of curiosity, because like it's a good umbrella term, like emotional blackmail, because it kind of shows that emotionally you're being exploited at the expense of, you know, your own needs and how you feel. But like, I think you said it, like, you know, threatening to withhold love or affection. An example of, oh, I'm going to leave, you know, guilt tripping, playing the victim, subtle or direct threats. If you leave me, I don't know what I'll do to myself.
That's a big one. If you hear that type of stuff, like, honestly, you have to start thinking about like leaving. Like, honestly, like, yeah, just leave. They're not going to do anything.
They're not going to do anything. And then they end up unaliving themselves.
But like, in the sense of like, you gotta rethink about what relationship you're in, because if they keep doing that, it's just so unhealthy for your own like mental health.
Silent treatment or withdrawal, thoughts on that?
Silent treatment, I would like, I would say like it depends. Like if you're like someone who's listening as well. But like the thing is like sometimes I would say sometimes like I'm quite like when things like that happen, I'm sometimes just like I'm not silent because I'm being ignorant. I'm silent because I'm just like processing things and I'm just trying to listen and understand.
You need space.
You need space,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Like you want to give yourself a moment to take a step back and look at the whole picture end to end and logically think about.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, like that's how us men are. Like we're logically
Yeah.
thinking about things and we're thinking about the future.
Yeah. We don't think that way.
Yeah, it's emotional. And this is what I've realized about arguments. When they happen, it's more so like the process of like how a woman processes it or a man. Sometimes it can vary. A man can also be like this as well. And a woman can be logical. But it's like we mostly go logical and women go emotional first. It's like something that I've also learned more recently. It's just like in a way you have to first validate the emotions and then after they feel like their emotions is validated, then it's like you can talk about the logical. It's like the order of sequence of an argument is like emotions and then logic. Because then you have that clash.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, as I said, with the silent treatment, like it's sometimes it depends on like the intent. If you're just being silent the entire time and ignorant to them and you don't show any affection and you're withdrawing and you're cold, then that's like obviously it depends on the context, right? Well, like if you're doing that and it's like over without listening to them or anything and you're being ignorant, see that is like harmful, I would say. Because but like if you're silent for the sake of just like as a guy as men especially, it's hard to be able to like I would say express sometimes.
Yep.
And you're just trying to be listening, you're understanding, you're processing, and you need that time to do it. And sometimes if you made a mistake, you feel a bit guilty and you're trying to process that and forgive yourself. I think that's where sometimes where it's like it's not as destructive or narcissistic in that sense or negative.
I think as men as well, we try to just solve things quickly. It's like, all right, it's like, I messed up. I'm sorry. Let's move on. And sometimes you just got to let the person feel that emotion and let it out in a way. Happens. But it's, I think we go into overdrive of solve. Like, that's how we naturally are, right? We like naturally, we just want to solve things and build things and, you know, not have obstacles in the way and not let emotions in the way. It's about very, as you said, like very logical thinking. But sometimes you got to recognize you can't solve something quickly enough. Like you've got to just let it play out. It'll get solved, but
that's true to be honest. And you can't foresee a lot of things. What's going
no,
on?
I'm just reading examples of like thing. It's like if you quit your job and stay home, then I'll finally marry you. Conditional promises, like
yeah, that's a big one. Conditions.
yeah, it's like if you do this, then I'll do this. If you do this, then I'll do this.
And also like ultimatums. Where it's just like if you yeah, exactly. If you don't do this, then I'm done.
Yeah,
Like that's an ultimatum basically. Because at that point they're like, if you don't deliver this condition or don't do this condition, then it's finished.
You're so selfish for not agreeing to this. Everyone else would do it. Gaslighting.
Yeah, that's a one.
Classic one. Like the moment there was this one, I think this was staged as well, but this woman was filling up a car and I think she drove off. And the pump thing was still stuck in the car and she came home. And my husband's like, what did you do? Like, what happened? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, babe, like, what do you, like, he's like, you literally ripped off the pump. And she's like, well, you're a man. You could go and fill it up. Maybe if you did your job, it wouldn't be this. And it's like, yo, like, that is gaslighting as absolute. It's an interesting one. I love how
these are all like red flags in relationships.
Yeah,
like emotional blackmailing, gaslighting, and then
making them think they're the problem when it's you. Falsely claiming fragility. I'm too sensitive to handle this argument. Can't you just agree with me? I'm just laughing because these examples are like crazy. No, I mean, yeah, relationships are an interesting one. What's another, like, I think we want to talk about workplaces too.
Yeah. Wait, before we do talk about that, I did want to mention like about silent treatment as well. I think sometimes as well, it's more so like controlling emotion as well. Because like you can be very reactive and say something, which makes it even worse. It's like an emotional response. You can be very aggressive, but sometimes it's like breathing and just like relaxing and then processing, and then you can give a more composed response, which doesn't lead to that type of destructive behavior and escalate it even worse. So that's why I think with silent treatment, it really depends on the intent and how it's really done. Most men I would say are wired with like just taking space and just processing things, thinking logically. Whereas, yeah, some are like expressive. So it's like it depends on the intent. If they're like silent the entire day and ignoring you, then it's like obviously bad.
Yeah, big difference.
Yeah, big difference. Yeah, that's that one.
Yeah, silent treatment, effective tool though if used well.
Yeah, I think some people who don't learn have to be like, as in like
smack the puppy on the nose, like
like they sort of have to reflect and think about what they did.
yeah.
If they keep talking about I, and they don't even like like a seagull from Nemo,
mine.
then it's just like they're thinking about themselves. So when you create space and just like let them just withdraw a bit and just give space and just tell them that before you do that, like, yeah, I'm gonna give you some space, just think about things, then yeah, that's when they'll reflect and actually understand what they did. Mistake. But see, now there's another red flag, which we didn't really touch, which is like stonewalling. Where you absolutely disappear without telling your partner.
Stone what?
Stonewalling. Like you just disappear without telling your partner.
I
Like
didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Like when do you mean disappear? Like you emotionally disappear? You just
Oh,
physically,
like physically, emotionally,
you-
everything.
you
You're
just
gone.
go.
You're like you ghost them. Like some argument happened, and then you're like, I'm leaving, and then you're gone. Like
Nice.
you don't receive a text message. You don't know where they are or anything. Just disappeared, and then they come back randomly. Or like you think that they've done something reckless, and apparently like that is the number one biggest like that's what breaks relationships. It's like that behavior. So when you come across that, like I would walk out, to be honest, because that's like disrespectful to you, and also just because like if you want space, you got to be able to communicate that. Because the other person is just in a state of anxiety, thinking about like obviously they probably recognize their mistakes or whatever, but it's like you're leaving them for like the intent of being harmed, like emotionally, mentally. You're giving them that like without, because obviously they care about you, but you're doing it with that intent, which is very bad, to be honest. So that's what stonewalling is. It's the number one thing that actually just breaks relationships very quickly.
I did not know that was a term.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Thank you.
Stonewalling, gaslighting, emotional blackmailing, abuse, cheating. These are all things that are red flags. Oh, destructive narcissism in relationships, I'd say.
So at workplace.
Yeah.
Because that's an interesting one. Every workplace has one.
Yeah, I think like with workplaces, it's like monopolizing discussions. This one I think is like a bit, I would say, the worst part of narcissism is like belittling people, like condescending them to the
No. Keep. I agree.
Yeah, because like you're purposefully like condescending someone and you're making them feel like intentionally trash, even though they've done nothing to you. Maybe they're not at the standard of level that you expected, but there's other ways you can motivate them and like do it in an empowering way rather than a condescending way. And I think this, like to be honest, in tech, not just in workplaces, there is a huge sense of like I would say condescending people. Like, oh, I know this programming language, you're so blah 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 stupid, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, being I can't think of the specific word, but contentious. I don't think that's the right word, but it's like basically like having a huge sense of inflated ego, and then that you just condescend other people to make yourself feel like or look like you're empowered. That I'd say is like a pretty bad trait. And then another one's like undermining collaborative efforts.
That's a big one. I think that's an interesting one because I think you've got to be able to. Okay, I'll rephrase this very well. in an interview question, let's say, you can really tell maybe who's a bit of a not a narcissist, but who's willing to give credit to the team more than themselves, and vice versa, who gives more credit to gives too much credit to the team rather than themselves. Because I think the important thing to realize is, and I've come to realization is, in a team effort, like, you still have a very big impact, and you need to call those impacts out, but you can't just call out your impacts. Like, you need to make it very clear how you got to the goal as a team and what your role was in facilitating that or helping the team get to that point. But yeah, you're right. I think they undermine collaboration. Yeah, like, they just don't have the sense of we or us. It's always me. Me. Yeah. Again, comes from a place of not feeling important at home or in their own life. So where do they feel important? In a workplace.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's like almost one of the three. Like, as in, if you don't have importance in those two things, you're gonna always have one thing that you're gonna try and be very like. Yeah, it's interesting that you put it like that. It's like you put a more of a narcissistic persona in that realm because you don't receive it from the other two.
Yeah.
It's like, say, in your life you don't receive it like from other people, or like you don't receive it in your relationship, you'll be very narcissistic at workplace. If you receive it at workplace, if you don't receive it at workplace, you don't receive it at relationships, you'll be very narcissistic as an individual when you come across other people.
Mm.
And then if you don't receive it in your, if you don't receive it in work and in your life, then you'll be very narcissistic in your relationship. Like, it's
could be all three.
It could be all three as well, which is even like, oh, that's how you create a monster, to be honest.
So that's
And that's how you can see it, yeah.
Which comes down to, like, again, like, where do you want to survive? Well, you want to survive in a workplace. So you have to you probably think about, well, if I undermine other people and put myself above and make myself look good, I'm going to get promoted faster. Therefore, I'll win the corporate ladder, whatever it is, Classic example. I think you said it quite well. I think it was you that said it. Not everyone, what's that leadership quote you say? Like, not everyone is born to lead.
Yeah, it was basically that. No, everyone is born a leader, basically. Yeah.
Like, I think, and this is so interesting. Like, you need a very good leader to actually pick out who's going to be a good leader. Do you know what I mean? Like, because a good leader will know the traits, have enough experience to know, yes, this person is worth investing in as a leader, or this person is worth investing in as an employee. But bad leaders will tend to choose other bad leaders, it becomes a cascade, and it starts from the highest position. From experience, I would say that's a very big one. Like, if your higher ups can't live by the right values, and embody a good leadership skills, then it's not gonna succeed. So yeah, you're right. I think bad, like, you can't, like, not everyone's born to be a leader. And I think some people aspire to be a leader for a lot of different reasons. I'll talk to you about them more once we finish this episode, because I can't say it here, but the leadership from people, it's just like, where do I it's what can I get out of this? Like, it's like a title, for example. They feel more important with a title, because, again, it goes back to, I think I told you about this NRL player saying everyone refers to him as Kalyn Ponga, the NRL player. And he's like, no, I'm Kalyn Ponga that plays NRL. It's a big difference. I'm not, you're not Wasif the XY, Wasif the XYZ. You're Wasif that does X, Y, and Z. You're Wasif that has interest in X, Y, and Z. You're Wasif as an identity. What you do is not your identity. People are quick to make their job titles, what they do, their identity, because that's where they feel important. They don't feel important or secure in themselves, who they are. They feel important in what they do, which is a big difference between feeling important in what you do and having purpose in what you do. Because you need a purpose in what you do. That's how you go on to do better things. That's how you build the right skills, the right relationships, the right networks with people. But if you think of it of the sense that I'm just this person because this is who I am because of a title, or take that, she says quite well, take that title away. Jeez. Take that title away, and what are you? Like, are you secure in yourself at that point?
Yeah, well, that's a very like I really like how you put that because it's a very powerful perspective as well, and it's really a good question to ask yourself. Like, how do you? Because that sort of dictates your self-image and like how you view your identity and how you view yourself. Basically, it's like, are you even like success? Like, okay, this is the only one that comes to my mind. It's like, are you successful because you're Shiv, or are you Shiv because you're successful?
Mm.
And like answering that question is like a very will really tell you a lot about yourself. Like, as in, if you say like, I'm successful because I'm Shiv, then it's just like I'm just thinking I'm successful because I'm Shiv. It's like if say right now your consciousness was gone and someone else took it, would they then be successful because they're technically Shiv, right? They're in your body, they have your name and everything, or is it because of you, who you are, like who you've developed yourself and who you are, like, well, that you are as a result successful? All of the actions and things that you've done that no one else who otherwise was in your position had this exact same life as you, but a completely different consciousness or mind would be able to deliver or have the same results as you do. And the
Mm.
truth is, like, they wouldn't. Like, if someone was to take over me right now, they would not have the exact same outcome as me because they'd have a completely different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's like why, I mean, statistically, if you're born into a rich household, for example, you have more opportunities to succeed, but that doesn't guarantee success. Like, rich people go on to live really bad lives as well, or they don't succeed as much as someone that's from a lower socioeconomic background. So I mean, in this country, like I think in this country, that's quite like it's sort of a mindset thing. But I think when I heard it in a podcast with Kalyn Ponga, I was like, geez, like that's super powerful. Like it makes a lot of sense. Like your identity, what you do is not your identity, is what it is, and you couldn't put a title to as your identity.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And it doesn't make you also like a fragile individual. Because if he was to identify himself as a footy, as in, like who he, as in a footy player, then what happens when he doesn't play, right?
Yeah,
He loses his purpose. That means then that's how people go to zero
yeah,
in the sense of like depression because they've tied their name and their identity towards the title. But
mm,
the truth is that title is temporary. Like
yeah,
if you're number one in swimming or like you've won a gold medal, that's temporary. Someone else next year is going to take it. You can keep doing it for 10 years, but at some point, someone else will take it. And if you keep tying yourself to that, it's good for like your brand deals and everything, but like and all that stuff, give yourself the motivation to keep going. But if you keep tying yourself to that, at some point, you're not going to have it forever. It's temporary. And it goes for everything. A king, or like if you're like the president, like how many times have presidents been going out, like, like re-elected, someone else was taking their place. It's temporary. And I think that's something very important to understand. You're just someone who does the thing. You're not the thing.
mm,
And that way it's not gonna lead you towards a path of destruction where you just end up having no purpose. Like you just end up losing yourself. Because I think that's how people really, I would say, fall into depression. Other than like lack of belonging, lack of, I'd say, yeah, lack of purpose and things like that. It's really like tying themselves to titles, to materialistic things when you realize they're all temporary. The car you drive is going to be destroyed. The house you have will one day disappear. It's just, yeah. But it sounds depressing, but it also makes you realize like just value the time in the present.
mm,
And I think like Naval even says himself, like, he says that everything will go to zero at some point, and it's just like there's no point of living in the regret of the past and anxiousness of the future when everything is like impermanent. Just it's better to live in the present. Yeah, something like that. I completely butchered the quote, but it's very interesting, and I really like that. And I guess that ties with like the whole thing about identity, and somehow ties with narcissism here, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like it's a good way to put it in that sense, but it's again like that's where a lot of narcissistic trends come up is not realizing that there's a present everything you own, your beauty, your superiority complex, your grand sense of validation will all not exist at some point. So what's the point of leaving it now? But again, the human mind is very complex, so it's very hard to figure out why that's the case.
Yeah. All said.
I think we'll wrap up here. That was a really good conversation about the narcissism in general. I think there's a lot of stuff we can talk about. Like I know we want to talk about the Lucifer effect, Machiavellianism, which is going to be a really long conversation because that's a very interesting one. Psychopathy, and there's a lot of different toxic things that we can talk about, I guess, without losing ourselves in the process. But it's good. It's a good conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that was a really good discussion.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time, Wasif. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and subscribe to the video. Follow us on our YouTube channel and any streaming services that you might be listening on.
Yeah, thanks everyone. See you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Wasif.